Hey guys, I'm really excited to share this video with you. We are talking tri-tip, one of my favorite meats to cook and eat. Thanks to Janice Smella for joining us. Janice is cooking tri-tip differently than me in this video. We're going to cover the whole topic from top to bottom, and we're going to grill Janice a little bit too. Find out what inspires her, find out a little bit about her cooking background, and how she approaches things like competitive cooking, which she is extremely good at. Hope you enjoy it. Let's hear some questions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. Everybody, thank you for joining. Thank you for being patient with our technical difficulties. I did a little bit of a different style of tri-tip tonight. I did a low and slow tri-tip, total cook time of about 6 hours. Mine are done and resting, so we're going to come back to mine later, but I'm just putting these away so they don't get too cool on me. We are fielding questions, guys. We're going to get right in and start talking about tri-tip here shortly. And we have my helper Delaney here tonight to take down questions. We'll start answering them around 7:40, I think. So, I want to thank Janice for taking time out of her schedule, and it's not just an hour tonight. She's been prepping for this for a lot of the day, so thank you, Janice. And thank COVID for giving her the opportunity to work from home right now.
Anytime to cook meat.
She didn't consume any work time, I'm sure. Quick introduction between Janice Smella and her husband Russell. I met them at a barbecue class in Alberta in 2014, and they joined their first competition in 2015. Does that sound right, Janice? And she and her husband have a barbecue team named Smella Q, after their last name, of course. It didn't take me long to figure out Janice was a fierce competitor. Very first contest, she was over asking questions a few times through the contest, and hopefully we helped her out. But in the years that followed, that team started winning ribbons and trophies, and then grand championships. And by 2018, they were winning and winning and winning. And I believe it was 2018 and 2019, they finished as Canadian Barbecue Team of the Year, according to the Canadian Barbecue Society. So what I admired about Janice is her tenacity. She's fiercely competitive. She's not afraid to ask questions, right? I've witnessed it at the American Royal and the Houston Livestock Rodeo.
Janice is frozen. She left.
Okay.
She got disconnected.
Okay. Can you use my phone at the bottom of the screen? You can re-invite her. Okay. While Delaney is having a look at the invitation here, my quick American Royal story, and her first American Royal was.
We're on LTE. We're not on Wi-Fi.
Janice, I'm talking about your first American Royal in 2017. The American Royal is the biggest contest in barbecue, 500, 600 teams, and I remember she wasn't extremely satisfied with their results on day one, which is the invitational contest. And the American Royal is a massive, overwhelming event. So after Saturday turn-ins, we're all exhausted. I love nothing more than grabbing a beer, escaping the American Royal frenzy, getting out, go to a Kansas City restaurant, just have some downtime. No. Janice spent her night walking around the grounds, tracking down some of the biggest names in barbecue, and asking for advice. And the next day, they kicked ass. So just a quick story about their tenacity, their competitive spirit, and I love it. Proud to call them my friends. Welcome, Janice. I don't know if Russell's around. Chances are the Smella Cuties are kicking around too. We miss you guys. But we have to talk about some tri-tip tonight, so I'm going to get in here fairly soon. Tri-tip is something that was only a legend when I started cooking barbecue. It wasn't until I took a trip to California with my wife until I actually saw it in a grocery store. And, in California, tri-tip is their barbecue, Tri-tip to California is pretty similar to brisket in Texas. It's almost the national barbecue meat, or the state barbecue meat. I bought a few tri-tips in California, brought them back to Saskatchewan, cooked them, loved them. They're a lot easier to find in Canada now. Many butchers have them in stock regularly. You see them at a place like Costco on a fairly regular basis too, so that's awesome. Tri-tip's a bit of a different cut. It's almost like a really large steak. It's naturally got a strong beef flavor to it. It's a little bit tougher than many steak cuts, but it's important that you carve it against the grain. We're going to do that tonight. And you can still turn this into a very tender, very delicious piece of meat. The traditional way to cook tri-tip is the California way. We're looking for a center that's pink and medium rare to medium. Janice's tri-tip tonight follows that style. You know, in 20 years of cooking tri-tip, I've always followed that style as well. More recently, a lot of people are cooking tri-tip with a long, low, and slow approach, similar to how they would cook a brisket. So that's what I've done tonight. We're each going to take you through our process from start to finish. And hopefully, if you haven't cooked tri-tip before, you'll be excited to track one down and give it a try yourself. So, brief overview of our schedule here tonight. I'm going to let Janice talk about her meat first. She's going to do the raw prep, trimming, seasoning, and so on. I don't know her entire process, so I'll be learning just like you guys are tonight. At some point, I'm going to take over and do my style of tri-tip and talk about how the two styles differ. So,
Do you want me to put Janice's questions
yes.
and mark their Janice's?
Yeah, you bet. So we'll take questions for both Pitmasters tonight, guys. And if you have your question directed at one or the other, please let us know in the comments. So I think we're ready for Janice to take over. How does that sound, Janice?
Sounds good. Thanks for the introduction. I hope the stories were good. I do remember that night looking for sauce, rub. We recreated our whole program. So if that tells you anything,
Awesome.
It also tells you I'm not committed to anything. All right.
Okay,
So we're going to do this up here. So this is a tri-tip. We picked it up at Ryan's Meats this week. Tri-tip is pretty easy to find. You can find it from Safeway. You can find it from Sobeys usually. So it's really sometimes just something you have to ask behind the counter. But it is rectangular, so that's, I think, where the name comes from. But usually what you'll see from the tri-tip is you will see a fat vein that will kind of come down just about the middle of the side, which will basically split where the meat will come from. So it's a pretty marbled meat, if you can tell. But the fat vein on this one, interestingly, as I opened it, I thought, that's interesting. Usually, where I see the fat vein, the grain changes. This one doesn't do that as much. But that's the fun part about barbecue as well, is you never know what you're going to get. So interestingly, on this side, I have a grain. So the reason why I point that out is because with tri-tip, with a large part of beef that you want to cook, you are going to want to slice across the grain when you're eating it. That's where you're going to get tenderness. That's where it's going to fall apart more in your mouth. If you cut with the grain, you're going to get chewiness. So what I will sometimes do is I will actually take a knife and I will notch the top. So that's my pro tip for you, is I will notch the top of where that grain changes so that I can find it afterwards. Other than that, it's a pretty simple tri-tip. So in Santa Maria, they go super simple. They do a salt, pepper, and garlic spice rub, or rub of sorts. Today, I have decided to go with something a little bit different. It's my tweak. I have my own spice rub, I guess. And it's not really that different. It's salt, pepper, garlic, a little bit of sugar, and thyme. And so I'll post that on my Instagram account after the session. But it's nothing really special. It's stuff that you have in your kitchen. All right, we're gonna have to do this up here because I'm still trying to figure out the camera. Anyways, and tri-tip. So I'm pretty liberal because it is a large, thick piece of meat. So I will just really cover it really well. And I will actually go back and coat it again. So the other thing is that usually when you buy a tri-tip, you will find that there is a layer of fat on the tri-tip. That's great. You can either remove it or you can keep it on. Doesn't really matter. It's really up to your preference. I like to keep it on because fat basically carries flavor a bit better. And I really like the caramelization, the sizzle that happens on when you grill your tri-tip or when you put high heat against it, when you sear it, makes it nice and crispy and creates a lot of flavor. So, going to just season the back side. All right. All right. So, my tri-tip's ready. I typically will season this about an hour ahead. This allows the salt and the sugar to coat the surface, to get into the meat grains. And then the next part is to put it onto the smoker. So I run a Gateway drum smoker. It is outside. We'll see if this works. All right. So with my smoker, it's a 55-gallon barrel drum. The top it cooks on direct heat. So it's more of a grilling style. I will cook steaks. We'll cook spatchcock chicken. We will do shrimp skewers. I've cooked bread on it before. I cooked cheesecakes on it. So smokers can be as versatile as you want them to be. Mine happens to be a little bit more direct. So on the bottom, inside, there will be a charcoal basket, and you fill it full top, and you can cook easily 6 hours or more on the smoker. I think I've done something like 8 or 10, but it's usually not required because the heat is direct. You can see, we'll see if I can, I'm going to play weatherman. Here is an air intake, and so just to crack it a little bit enables it to take some heat. And typically on the dial, you'll see that I'm not quite at temp right now, but you'll want to run it at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. What that means on another smoker is something closer to 350 degrees. There's little swivels. There's little swivels on the top that basically open up the air intake. And then on the top, the exhaust basically keeps the airflow. So usually what I'll do is I'll run that completely wide open, and it will basically just hum at 300 degrees. So without anything more, I'm just going to put another coat of rub on it and put it on the smoker. So my start to finish is about 45 minutes. It's 15 minutes on one side, 15 minutes on the other side at 300 degrees Fahrenheit on the dial, or 350 on another smoker. And then what I'll do is I'll jack up the temperature or I'll drop the rack so that it's closer to the charcoal, and I'll sear it off. So it takes 5 minutes on each side, and that is it. This is our tri-tip here. So it's not super caramelized because all I did was drop the rack. You can, beef likes heat, so you can definitely put it closer. You can actually put it right onto the charcoal itself. But you can see that the bark has been created in that, you know, like you can't scratch it off. The spice rub is stuck right to it. If you look, there's a part that I didn't coat as much rub on it, and it's a little bit red. This does not mean that it was not cooked. It doesn't mean that it was cured necessarily. But the way that smoking works with charcoal, you will see a smoke ring because of the chemical reaction that happens with the meat and the smoke. And salt. So I'm going just to show you what it looks like once I carve it up. So ideally, you want it, in Santa Maria, I think they actually have it black, but mine doesn't have quite as much color, but anyways, it is cooked on the outside, and hopefully what we will see is, is to see that it is red on the inside. Yay! So the grain on the tri-tip is going in this direction. And so, as I said before, you want to slice across the grain. So I did the grain that I had on this tri-tip, and I like to cut it nice and thin. What you can see, I'm really excited. My son reminded me, he said, you have one shot to cook your one tri-tip. This was his coaching to me yesterday. But what you can see, I think, is there is, the meat is nice and tender. You can tell by the stretch. There's some collagen and some fat in there that is rendered. It's looking nice and pink on the inside, just the way I want it. So I am good to go. I'm going to have dinner.
Hey. We are watching the questions, guys. We'll come back to the questions shortly here. But I'll take a look at my brisket. So I took a different approach, guys. I did a long, low, and slow cook on my tri-tips today. Saying brisket, I gotta stop that. It's a tri-tip cooked kind of like a brisket because it's a smaller piece of meat. Obviously, cooks much faster than a full-size brisket. My tri-tips went on the smoker at about 1 o'clock p.m. today, and I pulled them off at 7 o'clock p.m. today. I pulled them off literally 5 minutes before this session started. You check my Instagram stories, I'll show you what it looked like when I pulled them out of the foil and poked them with my thermometer. These tri-tips that I cooked are really soft, really probe tender. So I'll pull these out, we'll carve them up, and before I do that, I'll talk a little bit about what I've done to them so far today. So, like I said, these went on the smoker at about 1 o'clock p.m. I cooked these on my Yoder Pellet Grill. Quite happy with Brisket Farms barbecue pellets. I use their True North blend combination of different woods. I prepped at 250 Fahrenheit, basically all afternoon. And I wrapped these briskets up at about 5 o'clock, 5:15 or so that was a little over 4 hours. You check my Instagram stories, you'll see exactly what they look like when I wrap them up. I don't wrap on temperature or time or anything like that. I wrap based on color. I only wrap a piece of meat when it's got a really well-developed. So once we had that in place with the tri-tips, we wrapped them up. I put a little beef broth in there, nothing fancy, just right out of the can. And I sprinkled a little Blues Hog beef marinade mix on top of that tri-tip. I missed Janice talking about her prep process, but I actually injected these tri-tips. They're Canadian AAA. They were nice tri-tips to begin with, but they don't have the same collagen level that something like a brisket or a pork butt does. So I think that injection might help with the long, low, and slow cook to help keep the moisture in that. So the injection I used, again, was that Blues Hog, straight out of the bottle. You mix it with water according to the recipe on the bottle. And got some beef flavor there, phosphate in there to help the meat down to juice. So that's my prep. Pretty straightforward cook on these guys. Again, total cook period today of roughly 6 hours at 250 degrees. So I'll open these up, lay them on the cutting board. You can see what we've got here. The nice thing about using foil as opposed to something like butcher paper, for example, that foil gives me the opportunity to save some juice. This particular one must have had a puncture in it because I didn't get a lot of juice out of there. Delaney?
Hi.
Could you please get me a plastic cup out of my cabinet over there? But I like the ability to trap some moisture inside these foil packages because I can use that moisture to pour over my sliced meat when I'm done cooking. Do the same thing with brisket. Thank you.
This is smart. You can wash yourself.
All right, we're capturing that juice in there, guys. I've got 3 tri-tips. All right, so I'm really happy with that, guys. Got lots of moisture here. Now, I believe Janice mentioned the fact that that grain in the tri-tip runs in an unpredictable direction sometimes. You'll often see that that grain changes direction. You check my Instagram stories from earlier in the day, you see how I deal with that. I went in here and actually notched this tri-tip just to kind of give myself a visual indicator of the direction that I want these slices to run. Like any cut of beef, we want to make sure we're carving against the grain for maximum tenderness. So that's just my little indicator of what we're shooting for. So slicing that brisket up now. We're not going to find a medium rare texture, but hopefully we'll find a texture that's really tender, right? Tears apart with little resistance. Different entirely. Let's see how it tastes.
I want to see how it tastes too.
Could have taken a smaller bite. All right. I'm quite surprised how delicious that is. I did this cook a number of months ago. This one turned out better than the last cook I did. Really moist, really tender. A nice smoke ring on there. I don't know if that smoke ring will show up, but quite delicious and entirely different from the tri-tip cooked to medium rare. So, definitely worth experimenting, guys. You want something a little different, and you've cooked a lot of tri-tip before. This is a different change of pace. It almost tastes like a cross between a brisket and a steak. Quite good. I'm going to do it again. So, that's it for me, guys.
Rob, how'd you do on your brisket? Or on your tri-tip cooked brisket style?
I don't know. I'm kind of wishing I was at your house today. I think we're ready to take some questions. Delaney's been writing down questions. Let's have a look.
You can watch his new questions come in.
I can watch as new questions come in. I guess so. All right. We don't have a ton of questions here tonight, but let's take them from top to bottom.
Janice is frozen.
Okay. Question for me, what pellets did I use? I used Furtado Farms True North Blend. This is a hickory bag, but Furtado Farms is a Canadian pellet manufacturer. It's all Canadian hardwood. I've been using them for several months now. I'm quite happy with them. So, can you invite her again, please? How much is this cut of meat? It's not the cheapest cut out there, but it's definitely not the most expensive cut. It's more expensive than something like a brisket, for example, but it's not nearly as expensive as a strip loin or a ribeye or tenderloin. So,
Connecting.
Okay. Dollar per pound, it varies. The beef market's been pretty volatile a lot. I can't tell you what I paid. Do you sell the injection needles you use? Where can you get them? No. Don't sell them because it's really easy to find outside barbecue. I use a veterinary style livestock injector. I don't have one handy right now. I must have washed it. And the needles that go with those, you can find those at any vet supply store or medical supply store. I also found them online. So those needles are fairly cheap, fairly fine. They're cheap enough that I just throw them out so I don't have to worry about sanitizing them properly and so on. Janice, wave if you can hear me.
I can. Sorry.
Somebody was wondering how long your tri-tip was on the smoker.
Yeah. So my tri-tips are on the smoker a total of 40 minutes. So 15 minutes on each side. So that's half hour total. And then 5 minutes for the sear. And so there's still juices running, which is what you see. But I also made a chimichurri. And so that's one of the things that I love about Santa Maria tri-tips is that you can actually season it however you want. But simple works really well.
Awesome. That's all the questions I have written down here. Let me go back to the comments here quickly. Rudy came with comments right at the end.
Kevin wants to know.
Janice, Smella? Yes, it is.
Hi, Sam.
Can you show the technique of notching the tri-tip? Did you do that, Janice?
I did. It's really just a cut of about maybe half an inch.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't do it in the air, but It's really nothing special. It's just a slice about 1/2 inch deep, just so that you can see it when it's done. And it won't change your cook in any way. It'll be a little bit more cooked in that area, but you can just put your knife back in that same spot and you'll know where to cut down.
Okay. If anybody missed that, you can check my Instagram stories from earlier today. I did post a photo of how I notched my tri-tip, so that should be a good reference. What is the spice you added when you wrapped in addition to the broth? I didn't add a spice. I added Blues Hog beef marinade mix. This is the same product I used to inject those tri-tips before I cooked them. So I did season mine tonight with the steak shake. Gotta pit my own products once in a while. But good flavor overall here. Janice, how long do you rest between smoking and searing, or searing and slicing?
Good question. So I don't rest it at all when I go from the smoke to a sear when it's ready. So it's very similar to a reverse sear steak style. And then the other thing is that after I rest it for at least 15 minutes, if not longer. So tonight I rested it, I'd say probably 45 minutes, but it doesn't hurt anything. It's done when it's done. And so when I'm searing, I will basically take it to a doneness about 10 degrees below where I want it to finish, because there will be some carryover cooking as it rests.
Okay. We have a few more questions here, but part of the attraction of inviting a guest onto our Wednesday night show is I get to grill the guest.
Great.
First question I have is for me. Where in Regina do you get your tri-tip? I frequently find it at Butcher Boy Meats on Park Street. They don't always have it in stock. It is kind of an unpredictable cut still.
Janice got disconnected.
All right. Can you re-invite her, please?
Yes.
Okay. We lost Janice. We'll see if we can get her back on here. I find Costco has tri-tip from time to time as well, too. Every time I'm in Costco, I check the meat department. Sometimes I score, sometimes I don't. Costco reminds me quickly of an alternate cut. If you're not able to find tri-tip, you can find something that's fairly similar called the top sirloin cap, also known as a culotte roast. I've got a few questions for you. Put you on the spot here.
Okay.
So, we are now at the interview portion of the evening. We'll come back to questions to finish off the hour. But I want to know where you got your first taste of real barbecue.
Oh, that's a good story, because it's also how we acquired our smoker.
Right.
Many years ago, my parents gave Russell and I a weekend to do as we pleased. And we took that weekend, we flew down to Houston, Texas, drove the night over to Austin, Texas, and basically ate our way backwards from Austin to Houston on a barbecue tour. And so we hit up 5 or 6 barbecue joints. And after we had barbecue in Texas, mainly brisket, beef bones, I wanted to know how I was going to get that in Calgary. At the time, that wasn't available. So the great thing was that if you buy a pit and you learn to use it, you can make it at home. And so that's really how it happened. We bought a Pitmaker Vault, which is like a giant refrigerator. And we had it shipped up to Canada, and we learned how to use it. And that same year was the same year we took your class and got into competitive barbecue.
Very cool. Always starts in Texas.
Yeah.
I know you personally to be a very competitive person. I want to know how this competitive streak manifested itself before you finished competition barbecue.
That is interesting, because I don't think of myself as a competitive person.
All right.
And it's funny, because I think you see that part a lot. I just want to do well. I think that in everything that I do, I just want to keep up with what everyone else is doing. And so, I don't know. Yeah, that's about it.
Misinterpretation on my part. It's not necessarily a competitive streak, just an intense desire to succeed.
That is what it is. I like that. I'm going to use that. It's going on my resume.
All right. What role does Russell play on your team? And I know he plays a big role. I feel like sometimes you get most of the spotlight for your team. But Russell has competed on his own as well and done quite well. So when you guys are together, the magic really happens. I want to know what his role is on the team.
So it's changed over the years. It used to be where he would run the pit, he would check the meat, and I called myself the tent manager when we were cooking out of a tent. So I did everything that was inside the tent, so that would be seasoning, slicing, that kind of thing. It's changed partly because when I did my first contest a couple of years ago in Niagara Falls, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could actually cook the whole thing. It was just, we cook as a team, we cook really well, we argue a lot. That's the real role. He's not even here right now, so this is kind of entertaining. But, you know, that's where we are both, I think, strong cooks. And so we have a lot of heated and sometimes less heated discussion inside the tent to talk about what it is that we're going to put in. So generally he does the slicing. I will put it into the box. I'll make it look pretty, but we basically, we do have roles in that, like, I will check for doneness. He will, you know, ensure that it's cooking at the temperature. He'll manage the pits. He'll manage the cambro, and somehow we just get it done.
Awesome. Interesting how it's changed over the years.
Yeah, it is interesting. And to that token, like, I have taken the spotlight for what it's worth, but I think it's because he's not as comfortable in front of the camera.
Yeah, fair enough. Last question I have for you is I want to know what women in the world of barbecue have inspired you the most.
That's awesome. I have lots of inspiration. So when we went to Texas, I met Tootsie at Snow's Barbecue. She's 85. She does it on the weekends. I had never met a female pitmaster, and that was like my real taste of barbecue as well. But Danielle Bennett, or Diva Q in I want to say Canada, but she's not in Canada anymore. But she has been a huge inspiration. I met her at our first cook. She taught me how to make my first parsley box. So, and she's just always been super helpful. She's been great. I've met Sylvie Curry. She's out of California. She's also California's top female cook. And I met her at World Foods many years ago, as well as Saffron Hodgson. She's probably actually my real hero. Saffron can cook anything, outdoors, in any fashion, any format. She has a real passion for live fire cooking. And if I can have the same experience that she does, I'm in good company.
Yeah, you're right about that. Anybody who can cook squirrel competitively has my respect.
Right?
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, we'll carry on with the rest of the questions here. Next question says, can you freeze for later cooking? Will it affect quality, or is it better fresh? I'm willing to field that question. I don't think Janice's answer would be terribly different than mine, but I have no issue with frozen beef. The tri-tip I cooked tonight, I pulled it out of my freezer. They were marked July 2020. And it's a good exercise in cleaning out the freezer. But they were fantastic. So I usually freeze my briskets for competition. They arrive frozen. I trim them. If that trimming is, any more than 4 or 5 days before a contest, I'll freeze them again. So I've never had an issue with frozen meat. Carrying on. Janice, do you temp your tri-tip before searing, or do you always go by time? If going by time, what's your timeline?
Sure. I do tend to check my temps as my drum is going a little bit hot. But I basically temp it for 20 degrees below where I want to finish. Because when I sear, I'm going to get 10 degrees of heat. And then, like I said, there's going to be 10 degrees of residual cooking while it's resting. But generally 15 minutes on each side, so half hour in total.
Okay. What internal temp did you take your tri-tip to, Rob? Most importantly, I pulled these tri-tips when they felt really tender. The temperature was 206 to 208, if you're curious. Janice, what was your final finish temp tri-tip?
Mine today was 125.
Okay.
Yeah.
125.
And the interesting thing, is I like my meat on the rare side. So that's kind of why, like, mine, it might be more pink than what other people would prefer, but that's actually how I like it.
Yeah, personal preference. So Janice did 125. It came out pretty rare. You can take it a little higher than that if you want to. In regards to cooking tri-tip like brisket, you are cooking at what temperature? Is there a stove? So today I cooked at 250, total cook time of about 6 hours. The last time I did it, it was a hot and fast cook on the drum, and it was 2 hours in total cook time. Today there was a stall, and I posted a picture of my fire. Sorry, I posted a picture of my app. My tri-tip hit about 145, 150, and it stalled out there. Experience the stall. I'm cooking hot and fast on the drum. I don't think the stall would be noticeable at all. Janice, do you ever hang your tri-tip in that drum?
I have not hung it. However, I know a few other pitmasters that do and do it frequently, Kevin. But hanging is a great tool. It just tells you also how versatile cooking can be. It doesn't have to be on a flat grate. The great thing about hanging it is that you actually get bark creation all through the meat, not just, where in between the slats of the grill. And so I will, you often see me, or I often spatchcock chicken, and so I'll lay it flat. But I have hung chicken. I tried to hang a turkey. That was a little bit cumbersome. Lifting it in and out of the drum is a little bit tricky there. But I've hung ribs. You can, anything can be hung, really. But it's just another opportunity to create bark.
Cool. Do you sell the Blues Hog mix for the injection mix, or where does one find it? I do sell this at prairiebbq.com. Blues Hog is a brand that's gaining popularity in Canada. You should find it, most the larger barbecue and grilling stores should carry it.
In Calgary, you can find it at Wickerland Patio.
Wickerland Patio. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Janice, is there a place to try your food in Calgary?
My house? My address? No, I'm kidding. Unfortunately, no. I think the best place to try our food would probably be at a competition where we're able to sample. So in a post-COVID world, that will probably be the best bet.
Yeah. I can't imagine sampling. Sampling's tough to do at a competition in a regular year. I don't see that happening this year.
Yeah.
This is the conclusion of our questions, guys. So here's what we're going to do at this point. I greatly appreciate everybody attending tonight. If you follow me but you don't follow Janice on Instagram, please do that. She's becoming way more social media savvy than she was in the past. So she's putting up some really good content. And if you have any questions about this particular topic, by all means, post them in the comments. I'm going to try to post this entire video on YouTube. I'll see if I can share it with Janice. She may put it up on her Instagram page, but we'll try to publish this somewhere. And if you have any other questions, you can reach out to either of us by direct message. That's no problem. We're both fairly willing to help anybody who's looking for advice. I really have to thank Janice for giving up her time tonight. Hope you guys had fun. I did. Hopefully we'll be able to do some more of these guest interactions in the future. So, Janice, do you have any final comments?
Just thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. I love the idea of cooking along, as you knew when I said yes to this. But you know, I want to encourage everyone just to get out and cook. I mean, especially in the world that we're in right now, when you're stuck at home, you have time. And the worst thing that can happen is that it doesn't turn out. And if you want recipes for what to do with overcooked brisket, undercooked brisket, I have lots for you because, you know, barbecue doesn't come without practice. But the great thing is you can turn out some really amazing food and not have to try that hard either. So for sure, reach out and ask questions and, yeah, just get out there and cook.
Awesome. And Janice, I have one more thank you tonight. I joined your team at the Houston Livestock and Rodeo a couple years ago, and you gifted me this amazing shirt. And I haven't really had to wear it, but I thought tonight was a chance, so thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. That was quite the experience. I learned a lot that trip. So, and that just tells you how much you can learn by cooking, even as an experienced cook.
Right. Okay, thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Good night. Dinner time.